The show is strictly for educational purposes. The opinions expressed on the show are personal to the individuals appearing in the show and not those of Thinking Tree Ecoholics Private Limited. The show is not intended to offend or defame any individual, entity, caste, community, race, or religion, or to denigrate any institution, person, living or dead. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
Hello and welcome to Ecoholics Thinking Tree series. Today we have with us very eminent personality and a well-known bureaucrat of Government of India, Dr. Arvind Mayara. He is currently as a vice chairman of Rajasthan Economic Transformation Advisory Council and former finance secretary, Government of India. He is well known for his Arvind Mayara panel on rationalizing FDI and FI. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Trade is one of the most important factors of any economy, more today than ever because of the ever growing consumer demand. It is rightly said that in the race to become a world superpower, trade will be the deciding factor. So today we will discuss about the challenges in India's external sector and trade with him. To begin with, sir, do you think that India's trade policy is more focused on reducing the absolute value of imports rather than reducing the net import?
I would not say that the trade policy has been designed in that manner. Trade policy has been designed to create a balance between the exports and imports. Obviously, we are very import dependent country. Some imports are, of course, inelastic. For instance, petroleum
Yes.
products which are inelastic. We also have a huge demand, for instance, for import of gold because of a particular kind of genius of our people who have a great fondness for gold.
Yes.
And so, therefore, that also becomes a big import item. But then we are also dependent on import of raw material, import of intermediates, import of components for our own manufacturing and our own requirements.
Yes.
Having said that, we have also been trying to push exports for a fairly long time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the emphasis on export, for some reason, got weakened,
Yes.
and our exports started declining in a big way. One, of course, was that there was also a global headwind on that because of issues like the trade wars between China and US, and then there was also this embargo against Iran. So a lot of our export and imports from Iran were affected. So there have been global issues. USA's clear defiance of international commitments, even to organizations like WTO,
Yes.
the emergence of regional, treaties in trade at the expense of multilateral WTO
Yes.
commitments, bilateral treaties which have also started superseding WTO arrangements. So a lot of these began to happen, and in this process, of course, we were not nimble-footed enough to be able to find space for ourselves and play the games according to the changing rules of international trade, and our exports began to decline in a very big way. Unfortunately, now with this new emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat, which
Yes.
has just been expounded by Government of India,
Yes.
it appears that we are going to get into a much greater protectionist kind of opposition, and we will now begin to look at more and more uh, import substitution, which used to be India's trade policy before 1991,
Yes.
and when we were very closed, and because of which we also suffered a lot. I think we lost almost 30 years in comparison to China to be
Yes.
able to create a strong economy for the country.
Yes, sir. What do you think, sir? It is a fault of like we have very narrow base of our export items. So does it affect India's export performance abroad?
I think it happened this way, that for the longest period of time, uh, and if you remember, I don't know, you are very young, but I do remember from the times when I used to be young.
Yes.
that there used to always be this one particular category in India which we used to go out and buy, which was labeled as export quality.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
which clearly meant that everything else that was being sold in India was sub quality because it was not exportable in terms of international standards. And we
Yes.
developed a whole slew of industries and production in India because of protectionism, which
Yes.
we are, unfortunately seem to be creeping back into, where
Yes.
we created inefficient and not quality conscious production,
Yes.
which became what was available to India. The classic symbol of these were ambassador cars, which
Yes.
never changed. I mean,
Yes.
except for some minor cosmetic changes on top, the grill was changed or otherwise for close to 40 years. And
Yes.
we had to keep buying those cars because we believed that we needed to do import substitution, and therefore these were Swadeshi cars and we had to buy them.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So we have had this in our psyche as Indians. We have never been very quality conscious,
Yes.
and we have always believed that quality is only for niche. So if very rich people are there, they can buy a quality stuff
But,
which can be imported from outside and etc. But in India, we will be selling products which are not going to be of that high quality. Now you can see that in India, when we produce a shirt, that for instance, the shirt you are wearing
yes.
will cost not less than 1,000 or 1,200 rupees.
Yes.
But Bangladesh can produce a better quality than this for 400 rupees and export it.
Yes.
So they have been able to inculcate that quality mindset. Vietnam has been able to do it. Philippines has been able to do it. Indonesia has been able to do it. But in India, we have not been able to do it
Do it.
because we have always had this great pride in Atmanirbharta, and therefore we had this very false pride in ourselves that we can do everything ourselves. We don't need anybody else.
Yes.
So that is why our trade has always suffered. External exports have, and therefore the basket is narrow.
That's right.
Jewelry, but jewelry also of the second grade.
Second grade. Yes. That raw gold we import actually.
Yeah. So not just that, but even if you look at diamond cutting and polishing,
Yes.
the one we do is the cheaper variety.
Yes.
The higher valued diamonds are cut in Antwerp or in Tel Aviv, but not in India.
Yes.
So we have never been able to reach the heights of top class production, and that cannot happen unless we do that production for domestic purposes, because the scale comes from there.
Yes.
You can only have economies of scale
Yes.
if you are producing for mass consumption in India of the quality which perhaps you could sell to the USA.
Yes.
If the same quality you were selling in India for the same price,
Yes.
then you will be able to become internationally competitive. Otherwise, you will not. I don't think we have made much concerted effort to move in that direction.
Yes. Since you were talking about China, when we study the case of China, it became the favorite destination for companies, especially needing mass manufacturing because of the competitive market, cheap land, labor, capital, and various other things. Out of those, India recently has offered a corporate income tax rate cut. Do you think we are equipped to make use of the opportunity afforded to us by the trade war and the subsequent COVID crisis in China?
Here again, I would say,
Yes.
we have always made this great mistake of
Yes.
thinking that the risk of doing business in India, which comes from regulatory risk, which comes from political risk, which
Yes.
comes from risk of red tape,
Yes.
which comes of weakness in enforcement of contracts.
Yes.
We believe that we can offset it by giving monetary incentive.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Very
the
true.
state governments also, if you go and see, they will provide subsidy, capital investment subsidies are given, or
Yes.
the concessional land is given.
Yes.
We do all these things to think that it can offset, but the transaction cost of an inefficient system, including inefficient infrastructure, is very high. So if your quality of power that you're supplying is
Yes.
going to be of poor, or the certainty of getting 24 into 7 good quality power is not available to you,
Yes.
then the risk of that variable, and therefore you need to have 100% backup, because you don't know when there'll be power cut. You don't know where the power, the cycle will drop.
Yes.
So you need to have stabilizers to stabilize power, because there is a lot of variation in the power, fluctuation in the power. Then your roads are, you don't know whether the roads are going to be good or bad. You don't know how regulation will work. One problem in India is that we make all kind of regulations, but the interpretation of those regulations is with lower level bureaucracy, which interpret it in a manner which becomes either rent seeking or
Yes.
which becomes obstructionist.
Yes.
So we have this major problem. We had, in fact, in Rajasthan, what we did was last year when I joined here also as an advisor,
Yes.
the chief minister was very keen that we should do something to improve our investment climate. And there was a lot of talk about single window and make it more effective, and we should do, the time taken for approval should be reduced, etc. I told him these things don't work. And
Yes.
he agreed to experiment with something which, in my opinion, is a paradigm shift in the manner in which you look at things. So in Rajasthan, we brought an MSME Facilitation Act, because
Okay.
you must remember that for large industries, the state governments have very little say, because they
Seriously.
are governed by the IDR Act of
Yes.
Government of India.
Yes.
But for MSMEs, what the government of Rajasthan has done is they have said, from the date of registration, and the registration is simple, which is you just file a registration on the portal, and artificial intelligence in 2 minutes gives you a registration certificate. So there is no interface with any human being. And then once you have done that, from the date of your registration, for a period of 3 years, you do not require any prior approval from state government, under state government laws, from any government department, which means you don't have to go anywhere. You can start your activity on day one, business activity, and no government inspector will visit the unit for 3 years.
Oh, that's great.
So you can, so if you're an MSME, you are a startup, you want to experiment, you want to try it out, it may work, it may not work. I'm not saying that 100% of registrations will be successful.
Yes.
Let's say only 20% will be, because 80% people will try and they may fail,
Yes.
which is all right, because and that is the risk they take. But that risk is not on account of a regulatory risk. They will not fail because for 6 months their application was pending in a state government department, while they were paying salaries, or they were paying rent, or they were
Yes.
paying electricity bills, and therefore they just could not do their business.
Yes.
That will not happen.
Yes.
So this law is in force today, and after 3 years they get a 6 months cure period to do all their compliances.
Yes.
Now we wrote to Government of India. In fact, the Chief Minister wrote to the Prime Minister saying that at least for MSMEs, under all central laws, give the same kind of dispensation.
Seriously.
Fortunately, that has not happened.
Yes.
Whereas the Government of India keeps talking about improving, what is that, ease of doing business.
Easy drivers. Yeah. Single
What
window
would
clearance. Yes.
better ease of doing business, instead of saying how much time it takes for land allotment, how much time does it get to get a permit. We are saying you don't need any of this.
Mhm.
You buy land, and we have also ease conversion rules, so you don't even have to go anywhere. If you buy you have an agricultural land, you want to convert up to a certain plot size, you can have it converted by just filing money in the conversion rate into the bank account of the government, and you can start working. You don't have to go anywhere. Now, if we can create that kind of situation for all industries, and I would say the only prior approval that should be asked for should be pollution.
Yes.
If you have orange or red category industry, you need to get prior consent of the pollution control board because we need to protect the environment. But
Yes.
other than that, you don't need any prior approval. You should not.
Yes.
And and then over a period of time, we are looking at. I mean, we are looking at the moment for MSMEs under state laws whether we can reduce the number of approvals or inspections required by 50, at least 50%, if not more.
Yes.
So we need to move in that direction. If we really want investment in India, we have to cut out the regulatory jungle that we have created around investments,
Yes.
so that people can come and do business easily without much problem.
Yeah, indeed, it's a great solution, sir, because it's not about the monetary terms, it's about all the facilities.
Yes. I may get a tax relief,
Yes.
but if I have to continue to pay
Yes.
10 rupees or 12 rupees per unit power because I'm running a diesel generator,
Seriously.
I lose that money in any case. So why should I go to a place where you have these problems?
Yeah. Ultimately, industry or the firms will lose the competitiveness in the world market.
That's
Yes, indeed.
That's
Yeah, according to the former RBI Governor Dr. C. Rangarajan, besides improving the competitiveness of our export, new markets must be explored. The direction of trade must shift towards countries which are growing faster. However, according to a report by Trade Promotion Council of India that I was reading, the main export markets for India are USA, UAE, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Germany, Mexico, Netherlands, Bangladesh. What are your thoughts on this?
See, one thing, we need to develop new markets, there's no doubt about it, and therefore we need to continue to scan the environment to see where the opportunities are arising.
Yes.
And we have to be nimble footed. As I said, we cannot sit back and take our own time doing things. We need to move faster. We need to also facilitate exports by again reducing the compliances for exporters.
Yes.
And make, improving considerably the export infrastructure, which also requires a lot of improvement in India. I mean, turnaround time for ships, for instance, and other things, these require a great improvement. Yes. So we need to do that. But we must remember one thing, that we will have to continue to sell to countries which can buy. Now, there was a huge promise of BRICS nations like, Brazil, India, China, Russia, and South Africa. But we have seen that ever since 2000, in the last couple of years, last 3 or 4 or 5 years, all the BRICS countries have come into deep trouble.
Yes.
Their own economies are floundering. Yes. Unfortunately, because we have not really reached that level of resilience like the US economy, which goes down deeply and then suddenly rises up very quickly again. Because we've not reached that level of resilience, it is difficult for us to not depend on these countries, which are higher consumption countries than countries which run into trouble very quickly.
Yes.
And with the Atmanirbhar in place, I believe most other countries will also move towards Atmanirbhar, in which case we will find it difficult to open new markets, especially in countries who are developing or which are still emerging market economies, because of their internal domestic politics as well as economic compulsions. Yes. So to be able to export a lot to those countries, to my mind, in the short run, seems difficult.
Yes. If we talk about crisis in India, I have personally observed that government does everything possible to protect a consumer. The best example that I can find is the onion price rise in 2019 and again in 2013 and again in 2019. Several steps were taken by the government to check rising prices of onion, including ban on exports, imposition of stock limit, and import and transfer of onions from surplus to deficit area. The farmers were also incentivized to grow onions. This was probably not very well thought out, as far as I consider, because though it stabilized prices initially, it later led to flooding of markets with the onions. which had to be sold by the farmers at a price way lower than the cost price. Do you think that our decision making lack the far-sightedness and proper analysis if we talk about onion market, export market in the other countries as well?
See, once again, the problem in Indian policy making is that we are caught between moving towards free economy
Yes.
and a closed command economy.
Yes.
And we are caught between those two.
Yes.
And I don't blame politicians so much for that alone, because I think our society also is riven between these two.
Yes.
We are in the true sense in our transitional society today, because whereas you have a large number of people, say 500 million people, which are now really middle class,
Yes.
which are consuming people who demand goods and services and have the capacity to pay.
Yes.
But you have also close to 600 million people, I mean more than 500 million people, who would still be either below poverty line or just above poverty line.
Yes.
And the interest of these two segments are diametrically opposite.
Yes.
Whereas the poor would want the prices to be controlled, that the availability should be affordability should be kept in mind when you see how the prices are. Therefore, food inflation is the first thing that hits people, because you can't eat. I mean, rest of the things are all right, but you should be able to eat in a proper manner. And whereas on the other side, you have people like us who then demand better quality, even willing to pay higher price for better quality. We don't want, everything to be leveled at the lowest denominator, where the quality is poor and
Yes.
those things happen. So I think we are transitioning, and therefore we live with this ambivalence.
Yes.
Now, in India, one of the things we could do, because we are, for instance, the largest producers of tropical fruits and vegetables in the world, also of course consumers.
Yes.
And we lose, I mean, there are different estimates, nobody has real estimate, but estimates vary between 15% to 30% of the produce is lost before it reaches the market.
Oh.
Now, this happens because poor storage,
Yes.
poor infrastructure, cold storages are not available. So, and these are perishable, so they perish. So now you can imagine, if even if not 30%, even if 20% of the wastage was saved, how much resource would be available in the hands of the farmer?
Seriously.
And the prices would be much lower.
Yes.
But we have not been able to deal with this problem in a real significant way, although every government has done, I would say, including the current government, has done a lot towards building infrastructure. But the scale and the size of the problem is such that it requires something like the Swachh Bharat kind of a commitment of the government to create that kind of infrastructure to be able to save the produce in that manner.
Yes.
Number two, because of this volatility in policies, we have not been able to develop a forwards market. Now we could export a lot of our agri products. We could also attract a lot of agri businesses into India because of food processing industries and others. But the problem is that because we don't have a futures market in commodities, which is a strong market, and because government steps in any time and puts bans and all kinds of things, therefore that market has not developed. There is no certainty of prices for anyone to build a business model around it.
Yes.
So if I want to do a potato chips factory, unless I can predict what the prices of potatoes will be in the next 3 to 5 years,
Seriously.
I don't know what kind of profits I will make every year. So I don't know what kind of investment I should be making this year.
Yes.
That predictability does not exist. We keep talking about, we have a big, huge agri food processing parks. We come up with a lot of schemes and programs. But we are missing the first point, which is how do you create a predictable raw material market for food processing industry without the agriculture futures market and the entire infrastructure which should be built for that futures market. So we are not able to do that. So I think there is a problem. And once again, if we are moving towards a free market, then we should be able to encourage the Indian traders or create intermediaries. Like the Food Corporation of India buys the wheat to support prices. You can have import channelization for goods like onions, etc., for short periods of time. To create, to tide over shortages. And then, but allow exports. In my opinion, even if there was an onion shortage, but if there was a commitment for export of onions, we should not stop it. Instead, we should fill in that through import of onions, so that our export supply chains don't get disrupted. But then there is a huge amount of political pressure. There is a huge amount of UN cry, and of course, because these are elected governments, they buckle under public opinion for pressure, and policies become volatile. So I think unless we reach a state where governments can create long-term policies and stick with them,
it means the predictability is important.
Predictability is very important.
Yes, indeed. For the investor point of view as well as for consumers.
Even buyer, even the person who imports in other countries your goods, predictability is a critical part.
Because otherwise we'll lose the market. Because suppose some African countries importing onions and we suddenly stop that export, and
their internal trade gets disrupted.
Yes.
They cannot afford that because that creates political problems for them. So they will rather not go to India to buy and go to China, because in China their policies will be more predictable.
Seamless supply, talking about a huge slump in the oil prices has occurred recently because of ongoing pandemic. How can India make best use of this opportunity?
Unfortunately, we have lost that opportunity, because I don't think the slump is on account of pandemic. We have seen in the last 6 years, India was, blessed with a very benign international crude oil price.
Seriously.
At one point of time, if you remember, 2 years or 3 years ago, the prices went down as low as $35 to a barrel.
30. Yes.
Of course, now they have dropped to almost zero, but at different points of time. But I think we had that benefit even earlier. Now, that point of time, government also wisely did not reduce the excise duty. So there was a windfall revenues from oil for the government. I think that was a time when the government missed out on a major reform that they could have done. For instance, building up resilient infrastructure. They could have built up, like I was just mentioning to you, about agro-business infrastructure, cold storages, cold chains, warehousing, modern warehousing, technology-driven warehousing. We don't even have silo, driven wheat storage for our own buffer stocks.
Yes.
And that's why we hear tons and tons of wheat going waste or rats eating it up, and there's no account of it because it just lies in the open or in the godowns in a very unscientific way. You should have used that money to modernize our infrastructure to be able to reap benefit from it. And for the 4-5 years when we were getting that huge additional revenue, that money could actually have been dedicated to creating infrastructure. Similarly, in the power sector, for instance. If in the power sector, all our reforms are driven by loans. So we had Uday 1, where the state discoms debt was transferred to the state governments. The state governments immediately went into rent. Their own books got completely shaded just to clean up the books of the DISCOM. But after 4 years, 3 years, we are coming back to square one because again the DISCOMs are building up regulatory assets and they don't have money to pay.
Yes.
So again this time, the government of India has said we will provide 90,000 crores under the economic revival package, 90,000 crores of debt to the DISCOMs, and that is being touted as a reform.
That is
In my
seriously
opinion,
unsustainable.
I don't think it is sustainable.
Yes, seriously.
What should have been done was to create a large transition fund of about 40-50,000 crores or 100,000 crores. They should have put as a fund whereby they should have told the state governments that once they start giving subsidy through the budget and cross subsidies are abolished,
Yes.
and it becomes mandatory for the regulators to declare, without being asked to declare tariffs every year based on their own market intelligence and public hearings.
Yes.
The government of India could have said that for a period of next 10 years, in a reducing manner, the subsidies that you provide through your budget will be compensated by the government of India. And so slowly that would have been absorbed. The state governments would have started reducing, because subsidies they cannot give when they do cross subsidies. And this is one of the things why if you sell industrial power at 8 rupees a unit, again you will not attract investors
Yes.
who want to be internationally competitive, because the price of energy abroad may be 1/3 or 1/4 of the price we are charging here,
Yes.
which goes into cost of the product.
Cost of the product.
So we never looked at it like this. We have not tried to clean up the books in
Yes.
that way,
Yes.
and therefore I think we have missed that opportunity. And I don't see now with COVID, although their prices have come down, so our import bill has reduced considerably.
Yes.
But I don't see that helping very much, because overall revenues of the government have gone down from GST and others because of COVID, and also because of destruction of consumption, which in my opinion started happening immediately after demonetization, triggered by demonetization, has continued till now, and has now further got exacerbated by the COVID.
Yes.
So without demand, government revenues are going to go further down. I think the estimate is that fiscal deficit in any case for Government of India will touch close to 10%, which is going to be, I mean, huge. Even if it's understated, but it's huge.
Yes, yes. So the era of globalization is way past us, and nation first is apparent new tendency of countries in the world. What, according to you, is the relevance of World Trade Organization in these times?
I would not say that that globalization is behind us. I would say it's a temporary evolution.
Yes.
When you move in a particular direction, see, life never looks backwards. We may continue to dream of Ram Rajya or some such thing in the past,
Yes.
but life never moves backwards. Life always must move forward. So nations also move only forward. They don't move backwards. Globalization has produced certain energy, and there has been a major transformation even in domestic institutions and structures in a manner. It is difficult to rewind and go back to the previous time.
Yes.
So we will see this aberration, which will last there maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years. Who knows? Maybe just till the November of this year in US, because of the US elections.
Yes.
Because protectionism is being driven mostly by US.
Yes.
So suppose it changes in the US, you will see a reversal of the trend all over the world. We are already seeing a reversal of a trend, and it's something which people must begin to look at. The backlash against racism,
Yes.
which is the right wing swing which had happened all over the world, starting with the US,
Yes.
it appears is now the pendulum has started swinging back, because the agitation against racism in US is now spread to very large number of countries in Europe.
Yes.
So there is a backlash already happening. So I think this is an aberration we should see,
Yes.
and we will be returning to globalization. I am very certain of that.
Yes. Because for India's interest, globalization has been very
Is very
as Chinese interest as well. So it means if the largest population countries are having interest in globalization, which
Yes.
is yes, yes,
the
indeed.
convergence of interest there.
Yes, yes, very great point, sir. India had strong reasons for saying no to RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. However, there is no denying the fact that joining RCEP would also have brought a huge load of opportunities. Is there a way for India to take benefit from RCEP while also protecting the domestic interest?
See, these are geopolitical issues,
Yes,
and therefore there is no easy answer to this.
yes,
Certainly, it's always useful to join as many regional formations as we can, because it opens up some new door or the other.
yes,
But the balance that the government has to always keep is that by joining one and opening one door, will two other doors be closed?
mm,
And I think that balance is something which the government has to continue to have in mind. And therefore, I don't say that not joining RCEP was a wrong decision. I think it was a well thought out decision.
yes,
But certainly we must keep our eyes and ears open and see, because see, global developments are very rapid and their changes are very rapid. And when the fortunes change, today's enemies become tomorrow's friends, and today's enemies, friends will become enemies tomorrow. We just don't. In international affairs, this happens all the time.
yes,
As long as we can remain ahead of the curve, we would be safe. But if we are not nimble-footed and we are not smart enough to remain ahead of the curve, then we will certainly, our interest will get hit.
yes, yes. Because yes, international trade is all about the interest. So
Yes.
right now we are having the interest with maybe other countries, so we can move on. Since a small question, supplementary question about RCEP, India is having FTA with ASEAN countries. It's about the milk production with Australia and New Zealand, and especially the import deficit or the trade deficit that we have with China. So how can India put its interest to promote services in RCEP grouping?
So we need to see, this is a problem with most of the trade agreements.
Yes.
Every country, and therefore what happens is that countries who have already moved much ahead in development, and their cost of production is much lower.
Yes.
And as I mentioned to you, they have already gone beyond the problems that we have here in terms of transaction costs.
Yes.
They always find these treaties very useful for opening new markets.
Yes.
But there are certain areas where we have competitive advantage, and for instance, certain type of services where we will need to put the same kind of position in these organizations to be able to get the benefit of it. So it is always a give and take. You
Yes.
withhold something that you don't give to them till the time that they are willing to give to you.
Yes.
So I think that they keep doing, and I'm very sure the government of India must be working on it. There is no easy solution, and these are not something which happen in a short time. So many times it takes a long period of time before these things get unraveled.
Yes, yes. Indeed, it was a very wonderful session with you, sir. It's an honor to have you here. At last, a few words of encouragement for our initiative, Ecoholics.
No, I'm very happy that you are doing this, and one of the things is that it can reach out to a lot of people, but just keep it affordable so that even those who are not very well-to-do are able to benefit from it. so that more and more people can benefit from it. One of the things which I think is happening is unfortunately happening is because of very rapid expansion of education, we don't are not getting quality teachers all the
Yes,
time,
yes,
and
yes,
therefore it is the teachings that are happening in the classrooms may not be the most comprehensive ones, and
yes,
you could become an additional input to the students by bringing in people who may have knowledge in their areas, and who could make the students think laterally in a
yes.
different way than what they read in the textbooks. So it's a very good effort you are making, and I hope I wish you great success.
Thank you, sir. Our team is working hard to provide quality economics that is understandable for the layman and the students. Once again, thank you so much, sir. It was a very informative, very wonderful, eye-opening discussion, and it's a real-world discussion because you were the part of the government. As there's the Maya Ram panel, the most famous. I heard about it because I was reading very much in the newspaper during 2014, 2013. So that's great to have you, sir. Again, thank you so much for accepting the invitation.